opinion on this, because we really appreciate having all of you here. On surveillance pricing, just do a show of hands. Do you think surveillance pricing should be banned?
Yes.
Okay.
How would you define surveillance pricing?
Okay. I know. I just wanted a response. Mr. Martino? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And
for the record, my hand was not down, not up. It was down. I was asking a question as to what you meant by it.
I want you to talk then a little bit about shared data, order history, loyalty programs, and then how long you keep that and how you incent that keeping of the data, because that's a choice that somebody makes to enter into that loyalty program.
Absolutely, Senator. And in doing so, let me just first address what Mr. Levine said. I know there's the concern that what pricing may happen in one industry or the way those practices go, it may come down to retail. I think there's a very significant difference between the retail industry and, let's say, some other industries, and it really comes down to competition. Where you have robust competition, like you do in the retail industry, and very low profit margins, the goal on retail is volume, it's business, it's attracting new customers, it's growing the business because you have very little profit on each item. And what that leads to is, I think, a market constraint. It's almost like a de facto regulation in terms of having such severe competition that, that your competitor is one click or tap away on an app or one stop away. And so what's the mindset of retailers and Main Street businesses is how do I attract more customers? How do I do that? Well, you have to do that with excellent customer service. I mean, the only way to really differentiate yourself is to do that. And so loyalty plans are one way that it's done. There's a report that I cited to in the testimony called the Bond brand loyalty report. They do it every year. They've been doing it the last 14 or 15 years. They survey consumers. Consumers say that 85% of them will continue to shop at a brand if they have a great, will continue to buy products from a brand that has a great loyalty program. So yes, loyalty programs are one of those very important features. And also, it's important to note, it's also inherently privacy protective, a loyalty plan, in the sense that they're not foisted on consumers without their choice. You have to opt in to a loyalty program. You have to be delivered, the deal and decide whether you want to do that or not. And the state laws recognize this as well. The only protections for loyalty plans are based on bona fide loyalty plans where a consumer has voluntarily opted in to participate in it. So I think there are ways that, one of our principles is that businesses and consumers should be able to freely develop a business relationship. And if businesses on Main Street can develop those relationships, whether it's a very small business offering a, buy one, get two free, or buy 5 cups of coffee, get the 6th one free, they should be able to have those kinds of relationships as long as they're privacy protective. And we think they are in terms of making sure they're voluntary. And it's important to also note that the loyalty programs are subject in the state laws to every other requirement in the law. So whether it's a right to opt out or a right to delete, the consumers have those rights. So we think there are good business ways to do it, and loyalty is something that's been around in the retail industry for centuries. And we could go to general store examples and things from 1890, but the same thing applied back then that applies now.
Okay, Mr. Levine.
Well, thank you, Senator. It's one thing to join a loyalty program and say you can track my purchase history in exchange for getting coupons. Fine. But what the FTC study showed is that these consultants are telling companies, look at what consumers are Googling, look at what they're searching online, look at their location, look at how they're sorting products. A bunch of California law enforcers actually sued Target for increasing in-app prices while consumers were inside a Target store, so they didn't know that they could pay lower prices when they're not at the store. Briefly, with respect to loyalty programs, again, I think if consumers voluntarily turn over information, that's fine. But what we saw in this Delta earnings airline call is what Delta said is we can stop matching prices because of our brand strength, because of our customers' loyalty. And in a world of surveillance pricing, my fear is that companies are going to prey on the consumers who are going to pay the most. You might say they're the most loyal, rather than giving them discounts. That's what we're already seeing in the airline industry.
All right, Mr. Martino, come back.
I'll keep it to a 10-second response.
Yeah.
What applies to Delta doesn't apply to Main Street businesses.
Okay.
You have to look at the size of the market, the competition in the market. Airline industry is notorious for being very few competitors, not millions of businesses across America.
Years ago, as we were starting in on this debate, I would have people take out their keychain and look at their fobs that were on there. And those are programs they were choosing to share information with because of the incentive that would come back to them. Those times have changed. I want to go to the issue of AI because we're looking at these AI models that are collecting more and more personal data. They are doing tracking, search history, monitoring. And as we look at the prevalence of AI, and we've had a hearing on the No Fakes Act to protect name, image, likeness, and voice of individuals, and that in essence is a form of privacy. But one of the questions that will come before us as we look at developing a federal privacy standard is how you hit that sweet spot of being strict enough to have that preemptive federal enforcement, but yet flexible enough to allow the innovation of new technologies that we see, things that are going to run on quantum rails, things that are going to be AI applications. So, Ms. Goodloe, let me come to you on that, and then I'd like Mr. Thayer for you to give me a response also.
This is such an important question, and thank you for asking it. I think there are a couple of different ways to look at the need for a federal privacy law and its intersection with AI technologies. I think the first thing to look at is a recognition that AI can involve many different types of data. Some of that data may be personal, if an AI system is using personal data that relates to consumers, but a lot of the data used to train AI systems is not personal data. For example, AI systems may be trained to detect weather patterns based on data that's just about the weather and not about people. But when it comes to AI systems that may be processing personal data, that's where a federal privacy law is very important, to create the right set of safeguards so that consumers know their data will be handled responsibly and in trustworthy ways. One key issue is exactly what you pointed out, the need to make sure that a law is flexible enough to allow those products to continue to innovate over time. And I think this is one of the struggles that we've seen as the conversation about data minimization has evolved. That is such an important conversation, but you have to get it right, because a standard needs to allow for technologies to get better over time. I expect all of the technology that I use today to be better next year, and even better the year after that. And so it is important, as you look at these protections, to make sure they are flexible over time and to think through the uses that you want to apply to create the right set of safeguards.
Okay, Mr. Thayer.
Thank you, Senator. And I think Kate put it very well. There is that nuance when it comes to AI, right? You do have that anonymized data, but there also is the question of what the consumer expected when they gave that data over. So I fail to remember exactly who said it, but it really is like big. That data is the new oil, and what runs the AI machine is data. So the question is, where are they getting it, and how are they using it? So I think at the front end, the consumer has to know, how is this data going to be used? Is it going to be used to train an AI system? Are there elements of transparency in terms of how this data is going to be used down the road? That comes down to really being upfront with the consumer on where the data is going. And I think that's when it goes back to my testimony when I said that we just feel like it's out of control. We don't feel like we know exactly what happens when we put the data into any application or any use of search. So a big part of this is going to be transparency, and specifically what data these AI systems are training on. Are they training on PII? Are they training on anonymized data? Where are they pulling personally, and Senator, as you well know, there are things like there are ancillary issues like intellectual property that are also included into all of this as well. So the big question really comes down to, with respect to privacy, is what rights do citizens have when it comes to protecting their data on the front end, so that way it's not used on the back end to do all the parade of horribles that we've already heard about today. So that's how I see it in most cases. I think at the end of the day, the consumer has to know exactly what their data is going to be used and whether or not it, and also on the AI system, what are they training their data on?
So you're looking for specificity in that utilization.
Specificity, and at least at the very least, being able to have like the consumer be empowered to say, I do not want my data to be used for X, Y, and Z. So it's both.
Opt-in, opt-out.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Do you have any other?
Well, I think Senator Schiff is kind. I thought maybe,